Don't fuck with the Chuck.
We're playing Hide the Soul.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dave Cave. I, as always, am Dave. Now, before we get on any further, to stay on top of all things horror and heroes that comes fresh out of the Dave Cave, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of it. Today, we are talking the first entry of the Child's Play series that does not feature Alex Vincent as Andy Barclay, and that is Child's Play 3. Child's Play 3 was directed by Jack Bender, stars Justin Whalen taking over the role as Andy Barclay, well, a 16-year-old Andy Barclay. You have Perry Reeves as, well, his love interest, Kristen De Silva, and she has been in a bunch of stuff since then. And of course, you have Brad Dourif returning as the awesome, beautiful, iconic voice of Chucky. The third movie picks up 8 years after the events of the second one, and after Chucky is given a new body and new lease on life, he sets off yet again after Andy Barclay. And after a chance meeting on his way to Andy Barclay, he finds out and figures out that he doesn't need Andy Barclay anymore. That he has this new kid that he can try to get his body to, and that puts Andy Barclay into a new role, not the victim, the protector. And Child's Play 3 yet again has a great opening and a great explanation for how Chucky can still be alive. You have him picked up as an entire just gloppy, gross-ass mess in the trying to be reopened Good Guy doll factory, and as he's being lifted, his blood drips across the entire vat of plastic and is mixed in. It's a little bit weak, but it makes sense. You can get behind it, and I love that they just keep coming up with new ways to resurrect Chucky that really makes sense. And I stand by that these first three, and even in Bride, we'll get to that in the next video, have the best resurrections in the business. They really do. And yes, I am going to admire yet again the way they handle the mythos of Chucky and what he can and can't do, with the fact that they're giving him a new body, and Chucky figures out that, Andy isn't the person that I told my secret to this time. I have a new body, I have a new timer, I have a new way to get out of this body and go with Tyler. I love that because that avoids them having to keep the similar beats of the last two, but at the same time you can keep Andy Barclay in the story and go from there. I love the way they handle that in these movies. And one very interesting thing to notice about this movie was that even though it's supposed to take place 8 years after the last one, Child's Play 2 released in November of 1990. This one released in August of 91. There was no downtime whatsoever between these movies, yet you're supposed to believe that there's an 8-year jump. It's just crazy. They wasted no time getting onto this movie, and I kind of wish that they had. And the reason I wish they had is because when you go from Child's Play 1 to 2, you felt like they're like, okay, how can we make this better? You felt that they wanted to improve on the first. When they went from 2 to 3, it feels more like, okay, how can we get a little bit more crazy? All right, let's put Andy in a military school. Let's introduce this random circus. Let's have a grenade in the mix. They felt like they were just trying to do crazy shit because this really was the era of the villains as the heroes. This really was that time frame. And you can tell that because when you have Justin Whalen come in as Andy Barclay, you lose the connection you had to the kid. Because like you guys know, I love that kid as that Andy Barclay. He does so good. And there's so much emotion and history between that kid and this doll that you then bring in this new kid to play a 16-year-old Andy Barclay, which is fine. I understand the idea of not wanting to retread the same steps, change what Andy Barclay can or can't do, and move forward. But you can tell that this movie leans into Brad Dourif as Chucky. That this movie is centered around him and what he can do. It's very much a Chucky movie, and it's the real first hints of the entire series leaning to be about him. As I said, it was an era of a time where the bad guys were the heroes. You wanted to see the bad guys do crazy shit. You wanted to see the bad guys win, so to speak. It wasn't so much about seeing how the good guys were going to triumph. It was to see how many people the bad guys could fuck up on the way to their getting basically messed up by the end of the movie. One thing that Child's Play 3 did pretty well is it set up Chucky's threats less physical. He didn't really have any run-ins with anybody. He has one big run-in with Andy when he reveals himself to Andy. And what you get is exactly what you would expect. Andy grabs him and slams the shit out of him off of the floor. Everything else is set up, is not really one-on-one him having to fight anybody, which is not what Chucky really should do. Something that Child's Play 3 also does is it gives us hints for the Chucky that we now know. We get a little bit of more comedy. I understand that for these movies, he's basically a wisecracking smartass, and he has moments where, he has little bits of humor, but really you get this moment where Cochran has his heart attack. And Chucky goes, you gotta be fucking kidding me. He has more of a humor, more sense of humor in this movie. He's a bit more light. I understand that he screams and yells a bunch, which, again, best parts of him are when he screams and yells. But he has a lot of lighter moments. There's another moment where he sees Andy and De Silva have a moment. And he hints at the idea of, I gotta get out of his body, which leans into the idea of he wants to get laid. It's been a minute. I get it. But he's a doll, and you get that going forward. You get we all know, there's Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky. He gets it. But it took away from the movie. It really did, because you have 1 and 2 that are so solid, and then you have this movie that is starting to lean into a lighter Chucky and a lighter content for the character and the story. And I think this film really could have done without that. Really could have. I will say to this film's credit that it takes any kind of similarities that it would have to 1 and 2, because 1 and 2 kind of are the same, like I said, a little bit different. This one is completely different. The only thing that is really kind of any similar constant is people not believing that this doll can be real. That's really the only thing that this has anything to do with the first two in terms of story format. So that gets points for that. But where the film gets points for that, it loses points for introducing many more characters that you kind of are perfectly fine with dying. You get Cochran, which I understand he's supposed to be a hard ass, but he's still kind of a dick, and you're fine with him dying. You have Shelton, very much fine with him dying. You have Botnick, very much fine with him dying. But I will say, they do give you some characters that you really hope don't die. And when they do, it is pretty much a gigantic bummer. Looking at you, Whitehurst. It's another sign of the times, and I understand that back then, that's what sold tickets. So I'm not going to dog it too much for that. But it really could have benefited from just being straight up good guys versus bad guys. Chucky's on the bad guys all by himself. And while we are on the topic of kills, we're going to talk the other kills of this film just really as a whole. You have just as many kills in this film as you have in Child's Play 2. That said, I wish they would have pulled back just a little bit on it and focused a little bit more on the story. I understand this is a slasher genre of the early 90s. I've said that before, that I get what sold tickets back then. But because of 1 and 2 being so solid in terms of what they were for slashers and the kills, really this movie leaned on the kills and Chucky to sell the movie. All of the other acting is not as solid as it is in 1 and 2. And you try not to compare it to 1 and 2. You try to look at it as just its own film. But when you look at Child's Play 3, it really gets knocked down a couple rungs based on 1 and 2, because all around it's not as solid. You have 1 and 2 with their kills. 3 has its kills. The kills in 3 are bonkers. And that's fine. But you don't have any other acting really to back it up. Justin Whalen as Andy does okay, but he's not a strong Andy. He's really not. He's really kind of not gotten any stronger since he was as a kid. And really, I would say Alex Vincent's Andy Barclay was stronger overall than the Andy Barclay we have in this that is in military school and 16 years old. What about you? Who's your favorite Andy Barclay? Alex Vincent or Justin Whalen? Hit the comments below. Let me know. Mine's Alex. For me, I loved Child's Play 3 growing up. But rewatching it this time really opened my eyes as to why that is, because there's more spectacle. There's more spectacle in the kills. There's more spectacle and elaborate kind of settings. You have the circus at the end. You have the whole war games. You have more spectacle and less scary content. I understand that now, because the Chucky from 1 and 2 used to scare the shit out of me. Child's Play 3 was much easier to consume as a child, because this movie really isn't anywhere near as being any kind of close to scary as 1 and 2 are. Not even close. I will say, one thing that this film did very well was kill Chucky. Again, they love picking him apart piece by piece. They cut his face off. They blow his arm off. They cut his hand off. And then they drop his little ass into a giant, very not up to code fucking fan. And he just gets blown to pieces. From 1 to 2 to 3, the kills get more and more definitive. And you leave 3 and you think, how in the bloody hell are they going to bring him back together? Well, we get the answer, but we're going to have to hold on until we do the Bride of Chucky review, which is coming, so just hold tight for that. But then they do the same thing that bothered me so much about the end of Child's Play 2, is they just roll credits. They shut down the circus, they have Andy go away in the ambulance, and then it's just over. They roll credits, they have no kind of... They don't know how to end it, and that's also a problem I have with the fact that all of a sudden they go from having this whole military theme through the whole movie, and then they end it at a carnival. They didn't know what to do with the storyline. They didn't know how to end it at the military school. So they move it, and like, oh, hey, look, there's a carnival over there. And that'll give us the roller coaster and all kinds of the haunted house. They gives you other cool little scenarios, but you could tell that they couldn't make a whole movie out of that, and they didn't know how to finish it out of Kent. So they put the two together, and they made a film. Again, fun to consume, but overall doesn't really make a lot of sense. So overall, the rewatch of this film really was kind of a bummer for me, because I grew up on Child's Play 3. That was my I love Chucky. That's why I love Chucky. I loved him as a character. I loved him in 3. Now watching it, 3 so far is the weakest one of the series that I've gotten into. Like I said, I've only been through 3. But really, when you put it up to Child's Play 1 and 2, doesn't even get close to measuring up at all. So where 1 and 2 have gone up in my ratings, Child's Play 3 is down probably a good 3, maybe 4 rungs. And that really sucks. How about you? Where does Child's Play 3 fall on your rankings for the entire Child's Play series? Hit the comments. Let me know. And also, while you were down there, let me know your favorite kill of the film. Is it Botnick? Is it the Garbage Man? Ugh. Is it Shelton? Hit the comments. Let me know. And because this is a review series, I have links to all of my other Child's Play reviews in the description below. And also down there, I have links to my Instagram and Twitter at @TheDaveCave_. Post over there when I'm not posting here. And that is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much, as always, for stopping by the Dave Cave. See you soon with Bride of Chucky. Take care.